you guys know it is 100%, 100 gazillion percent time to cover your assets, especially if I'm right that we are in the very beginning stages of the hyperinflation. I hope I'm wrong. I don't think I am, but I hope I am. So you want to make sure that you have that covered. And here at ITM, we use the Wealth Shield, and the foundation is real money, physical, that is completely out of the system. Because I love how the Bank for International Settlements says, gold kept at home is not subject to government manipulation. And it also says gold is proven to be a hedge against not just inflation, but catastrophes. So the government, by issuing bonds with a fixed coupon, right, that means that it's easier to, presuming you have that income, it is easier to service that fixed rate debt. And that's part of the strategy, so a fixed rate mortgage, etc. If you have variable rate interest, you are just, pardon me, you are just screwed. Because the interest rates then are spiking so fast that no matter how much you make in payments, you're never touching the interest, let alone any of the principal. Mm-hmm. So, you know, having fixed rate debt is not a bad thing as long as, and this is critical, as long as you have the ability to pay it off in a heartbeat if you needed to, or when you needed to. That is a big key, because a lot of people are going out and they're taking out, you know, huge amounts of debt on, say, mortgages and real estate because they think that's going to protect them. But when we go into the hyperinflationary depression and they can't make their mortgage payments, then they're going to have a problem. And that's the function of gold, is to make sure that, number one, you can always make that mortgage payment or pay that whole thing off in a heartbeat, but also your property taxes are a very, very big deal during this period of time. And so you need to have the ability to pay those. And that's where your physical gold and silver outside of the system comes in, that enables you. Your mortgage payment would be less on a negative rate mortgage, just like as interest rates go down. I mean, there are some negative rate mortgages, but that's all about keeping the real estate bubble inflated, because it's such a large part of not just the economy here, but the economy in China, the economy globally. You know, so real estate is a key. So they'll do whatever they need to do, or whatever they can do, to keep that bubble alive until they can't do it anymore, or until it becomes too expensive. So that's how it would affect your mortgage. If you have a fixed rate mortgage, it's not going to have an impact. If you take out a negative rate mortgage, then you owe less, but you still have to have the ability to pay that mortgage off, because hyperinflationary depression is not good for most people. Yeah, I think most people are not stacking silver or gold, and you need to be stacking both. And you know, the 95% that won't have any silver or gold or money or wealth outside of this system, well, I can tell you that in Venezuela, I mean, globally on average, 80% of the population goes into abject poverty. In Venezuela, that was 90%. And my guess is probably be closer to 90% on this global basis as this whole hyperinflationary depression is unfolding. So yeah, that means that they'll be in abject poverty. And that's why it's food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. And if you have a chronic illness, then you need to be preparing for that as well. I mean, all of their wealth, it just evaporates, and that's why they end up in abject poverty. Yep. You know, and we can already see a lot of that happening today. So, you know, I don't have obviously I don't have technical confirmation, but I'm sorry, Eric, it definitely does feel to me like we have begun that march. You have to understand too, I mean, we are seeing some interest rate spikes. Do I think that this is the beginning of the big spikes? No. But as we move forward into this more inflationary period, the likelihood of the interest rates going up is far greater than going down. Now, Turkey is running an experiment because they're blaming their inflation on the high rates. So they're lowering rates into a rapidly rising inflationary environment, which is counter to what...
Yeah, that's interesting.
Exactly. It's so interesting because we definitely have this difference between the way central banks are now handling what's going on out in the environment. So you do have, particularly in South America, a lot of central banks there in Mexico that are raising rates to try and combat this inflation. I don't think either one of them are going to work. And the reason why I say that is because, modifying the interest rates are how governments, since they started this great fiat money experiment, has regulated the rate and speed of inflation. So to curtail borrowing, they would raise rates and therefore bring inflation down. But what's happening in the environment now with all of the inflation is not because of, it's because of past borrowing. It's not because of future borrowing. The supply chain is really broken, and we experienced that before. We're experiencing it again. Prices are spiking for everything. So there are different reasons. So that's why I say that I think that we really have started this hyperinflationary piece. I'm nervous about it. I'm not going to lie. I am nervous about it. I'm glad that I just got the solar done, at least in the bug out house, and the next step is to insure the food. So I wasn't going to do that this year. I was going to wait and do that next year, but I'm not waiting because, and it isn't, the prices have gone up dramatically. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the ability to get the materials that I need to build. I'm going to do geodesic dome, and you guys are going to see it because we're going to film all of this. But I'm going to do geodesic domes, which are a lot cheaper than the hot houses. I mean, a lot cheaper than the hot houses, but also a lot stronger. But I'm not waiting until next year to buy it now. And then have your gold so that you can make sure you can always pay your mortgage, pay off your mortgage, pay your property taxes. I mean, this happened during the Depression, where you could have had your house paid off 100%, but if you could not pay those property taxes, you lost your property. And we definitely have already seen property taxes moving up, because how do governments generate, whether they're local governments or whatever, but how do they generate income? And that's through some form of taxation, whether it's a visible tax or an invisible tax.